of all, I've been very privileged. One of the things I think I've been very privileged in life is to have seen Tendulkar from the time he was 14. I remember my first interview I did with him was for a magazine called Sports World in Calcutta.
Yeah.
A magazine that was way ahead of its times. It was called "Is This the Greatest Schoolboy Cricketer Ever?" And we did it sitting cross-legged. And after that, Roy Bridnath, who was the best cricket writer, best sports writer in India by a very, very long shot, and among the best in the world, came down to do another interview with him. And I remember that. I'm telling you there's a story behind that. The questions used to be 20 words long, and the answers used to be between 1.5 and 2 words long. But he was extremely confident, and it's been a privilege to have seen him grow. Honestly, I find, in my own book, I find his last 12 months a bit inexplicable. 12 to 18 months I find inexplicable. But sometimes genius must find its own way. Because genius thinks the way some other people cannot think. And that's why there are such few geniuses in the world. They have their own quirky ways of doing things. But it's been a privilege to watch him. I've seen him play some great innings. There was a time when, I think it came to his first 8 or 900s, that I'd seen every single one of them. And then I sort of lost count about the 10th or 11th. But there are a couple of things I've loved about him. One is the ease with which he grasps things. He is enormously in love with cricket. People think that he's made it because of his talent. He's a lot of bullshit. He has the best work ethic I've seen. Extraordinary work ethic. He stayed away from his parents at the age of 12 or 13. Played 12 hours a day. And went to sleep at 8 o'clock because he had a dining table because he just had no energy left. But extraordinary passion for what he did. And in the end, if you look at the most successful people in the world, that is the one thing they have, more than anything else. They have extraordinary passion and desire to do what they do. And I saw that in him right from the time he was 14, 15. He could think about the game like 15-year-olds are not meant to think. He had extraordinary grasp of the game. And even today, when you talk to him about some things, you suddenly say, shit, I thought I knew enough about the game, And he makes, just by the way he thinks. For example, on one of the shows I did, it was a Tendulkar birthday special and Ravi Shastri was with me. We asked him why he didn't have a runner at the World Cup. I know some of you read that part. In the 2003 World Cup, he didn't have a runner. He said, for one, I've never had a runner in my life. He said, because if I have a runner, he'll always be 2 yards behind me. Because before I have played the ball, I have already in my mind taken my first stride forward. Because only I know how slowly I have played the ball. I know where the ball is meant to go. The runner will not know where the ball is meant to go because I have put it there. And I have played it at a speed which will allow me to take a single. He will not understand my thought process because he will have to wait and see how slow the ball is going, then see where the fielder is, then decide whether to run. By the time, even at the back foot, I've done 2-3 yards. He said, do you think Schumacher starts when he sees the 5th light? The Schumacher starts when he sees the 1st light. The 5th light is just incidental, it just goes. It's a trigger. He doesn't start the race at the 5th light, he starts the race at the 1st light. He said, I start taking the run before I play the ball. And this is something you can never understand. And this is something Ravi couldn't understand. Because Ravi's been a hard-working cricketer. Ravi Shastri is someone for whom I have enormous respect, extraordinary respect as a cricketer and as a broadcaster. Because he maximizes what God gave him. And that's a great gift to have. He played 80 test matches for India. He's made 12 test hundreds for India. It's an extraordinary triumph of mind over ability. It's not that he's a dud, seriously, if you're a dud you can't play. But I'll talk about Ravi later because it's a direct contrast to lessons you learn from watching Sachin. He thought about the game differently, and Sanjay Manjrekar told me a great story about him once. They were opening the batting in a Devdar Trophy match. It was South versus West. West versus North. And North had made 280. And this comes from an era when 280 was considered a good score, not a dawdle in the park like it is now. 280 is a good score. So these guys had to get a move on. And Sanjay Manjrekar said, he was trying to get his eye in. He said, Sachin just walked across and said, things are what are they like? He went over the top there. And Sanjay said, "Nahin, let's play yourself in first." He said, "Yahan pitch par kahin hona nahi." He said, on this pitch, nothing is going to happen. Allow yourself to think that you can do it, he said. Allow yourself to think that you can play that shot and see if you can. And Sanjay said, next ball he just went over. He said, okay, let me try. He said, I would never have played that shot. He went over. And he said, straight, it went over cover for 4. And he said, I've not even thought about it. And this man's thinking is so far different from everyone else's that he has analyzed the situation differently. And there's another thing he did. And sometimes ideas work and sometimes they don't. But it's how you approach a problem that often determines whether you're going to have a solution or not. If you approach a problem saying, we cannot find a solution, it's very unlikely you will find a solution. But if you say, maybe this is the way I can find a solution, you may not always find it, but you give yourself a chance of finding it. South Africa made what, 359 for 2 or 369 for 2? In the World Cup final? Australia, sorry, not sorry. 359 for 2? So you've got to make 360 to win, right? 7.2 and over. Bowling was McGrath?
Yeah.
No, Gillespie had gone back. Lee? Bickle? Well, anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter who the bowling is when you make 360. Final of a World Cup. How do you win? India would have been, easiest thing in the world for India to do would have been to say, see guys, we gave it a good shot. We got to the final. Let's be happy we made the final because we can't score 360. Apparently in the team meeting he said, can we score a boundary of every ball, of every over? Can we score one boundary per over? Seems alright? If you make one boundary per over, you've made 200 runs in 50 balls. What's the target down to? 160 from 250 balls. Can we? He said, come, let's go and try and win this match. That's why the reason he hit the second boundary of McGrath was if you don't knock Glenn McGrath off his length in the first couple of overs, then the next 4 overs are going to go 15-20 runs max. And then your target's gone. Somebody had to knock McGrath off his line straight away, otherwise you're not going to win. And he said, I'll do it. Because if you realize in that World Cup, you know, in every organization, in every team, you have officially designated leaders and you have people who play the role of a leader. No, I'm not being delicate, I'm being damn serious. These are not people who say you field here, you field there, but by their very performance, people start looking up to them to show the way. So though they are not leaders, and you find that in every organization, you'll find that in classrooms, you'll find that in groups, that even though they're not the leader of the group, by their sheer presence, they become the people to watch. And that World Cup for India was a Sachin Tendulkar story. Whether it was those innings against Pakistan and England, or whether it was the most crucial innings of all that he played in the World Cup, was against Zimbabwe. The most crucial innings of all in the World Cup came against Zimbabwe. India were playing by the most charitable disposition, shit cricket by them. We had just about scraped through against Holland. We had done what we normally do against Australia in a one-day game. we just turn up, take our lunch and go home. For a while at least. And then we went to Zimbabwe to play in Harare. We don't like playing in Harare. We don't like, because the wickets are very spongy. The ball hits the deck and just stands up. It comes very slowly off the deck. Our batsmen like the ball coming on. And we've got a history of being troubled by Zimbabwe. If you remember 1999, we lost to Zimbabwe. That's where our Super 6 ended. So somebody had to make sure that we won that game against Zimbabwe. And Tendulkar played one of his best innings. He played a slow 70 or 80. Remember that? 81. Whatever he played, doesn't matter. But here is someone who can assess a situation beautifully. And that is why his last 12 or 18 months have been so completely inexplicable. He set high standards. He averaged 91.5 last year. But instead of saying, wow, we're saying, hang on, in 8 of those 15 innings, he didn't reach double figures. Which means his mean is still pretty good, but his standard deviation is gone. And I think with most great players, you'll find in their peak, that while the mean is pretty high, the standard deviation is very low. They score around their mean fairly consistently. Whereas with Tendulkar now, for the first time in his career, he's getting a 248 not out, a 241 not out, a 194 not out, a 60 not out, and taking that average up there. He's playing different cricket, but you have to give geniuses their due. They understand their game better than anyone else.